Hi. So I saw this video, and it was Baldur's Gate 3. Larian is the new old Bioware and better. And I have a few issues with this video, namely it misunderstanding RPGs and additionally what Bioware is trying to do. I use the analogy of like so imagine. Oh, I mean no, why not? So Einstein, I think, once said that if you measure the ability of fishes, if you measure a fish's ability to climb a tree, you will never get their full potential, right? And this is what the kind of feels like with this video. It's measuring the ability of a Bioware to do something they're not trying to do, which like it's fine if you want Bioware to do something else, right? That's fine, right? Like we can all understand that we want to have developers or games be different ways, like I want um, like Baldur's Gate 3 to be a different kind of game. I want a voice protagonist, for me personally. But obviously, that's not going to happen. And I recognize it's not trying to do that. I don't think the game failed in what it's trying to do. I think it's failed on my standards, right? But it hasn't failed on what it's trying to do, what the game is saying. And that's what I want to go through with this video.
You might remember a developer
Also, I did put it to 1.5 times speed, not because the guy's slow, but just to get to the points a bit quicker.
by the name of Bioware. They were responsible for the creation of some of the greatest RPGs of all time, including the predecessors of Baldur's Gate 3, Baldur's Gate, Baldur's Gate 2, and Throne of Baal. Above all, they forged a legacy of legendary games, such as Neverwinter Nights, Star Wars, Knights of the Old Republic, Jade Empire, Dragon Age Origins, Mass Effect, and others. Some people nostalgically refer to this epoch as the Golden Age of Bioware. On his team were such luminaries as David Gator, Drew Karpyshyn, and many others. Most people of a certain age remember that in many ways Bioware set a new standard for RPGs between the years of 1998 and 2009 on multiple.
I don't think it set a new standard. I think it just set a different. It made possible a different kind of RPG. When standards get thrown out, it always sort of. How do you say? When people throw out like this thing set a new standard, what I think is trying to be said is not that this is what now all things have to be. It's that it set out what can a new possibility, right? It set a new realm of. It set it showed that there is a new way to make something else, right? Bioware didn't set new RPGs. They created a different kind of RPG, the cinematic RPG with Star Wars, Knights of the Old Republic with KOTOR, right? They made a new kind of RPG, a more cinematic approach. Not that they made a better RPG. If you want to look at older RPGs, older isometric RPGs, right? Like Pillars of Eternity and Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2 are those RPGs basically. And they're not that cinematic, They are very similar to Baldur's Gate 3, not Baldur's Gate 3, to Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 in that way. But what Bioware did was just make a different kind of RPG. So I don't think it set a new standard. If by standards, the only thing that you could argue is like they made it easier to react or set a standard to react to what the player is doing better. But even then, like that wasn't changed that much in Baldur's Gate 1 and 2. I mean, it's the same sort of reactivity. Again, I don't think that's accurate to say.
Dialogue, storytelling, alternative paths and choices, companions, among other things. And it was truly a glorious time. Even the titles that were
Companions, I do agree. As for alternative like storylines and directions and whatnot, I don't think so. Dragon Age, Mass Effect all have one singular destination. The only real difference is like the journey you get there. Like Mass Effect 2, I mean, that is technically all your companions can die and you can die, but that doesn't carry over, so that doesn't really count.
Less RPG-ish, such as Mass Effect 2, and to a greater extent Mass Effect 3, have etched themselves into our memory.
Again, like a less of an RPG, I don't know, that doesn't really mean much of anything. Mass Effect 2 and Mass Effect 3 are an RPG. Because I imagine if you ask this guy, do you think The Witcher 3 is an RPG? I think he'll say yes, And and again, Witcher 3 is more similar to Mass Effect 2 and Mass Effect 3 in terms of RPG mechanics, in terms of narrative RPG mechanics, than they are in like Baldur's Gate 1 or 2, And again, I think this is the problem with this guy's video, is that his perspective on what a RPG is basically just D&D but a video game. Which, if that's your perspective, sure, I think that's very limiting. I think that cuts out a lot of RPGs that are RPGs, but and additionally, I think that sort of will cause some misunderstandings between games that are RPGs in my eyes, but are not trying to do a Baldur's Gate thing, right? Because you'll fail them because they're not an RPG, but technically they haven't failed. Their goal wasn't to be a D&D RPG, it was to do something else.
For other reasons, I always look back with great fondness and wistfulness at the ever-loyal and competent sharpshooter, Yaris, and think, that is what a friend ought to be like, both in games and beyond, independent of whatever faux pas might have been committed in the larger story. But all good things must come to an end, and so too did the golden era of Bioware. Increasingly, their games resembled RPGs with diminished choice and meaningfulness in those choices, as the once legendary RPG makers began to disassemble the very elements in their game.
One, I think it would have been better if you gave an example. What choices did they disintegrate? If I think about in Dragon Age Inquisition, right? Choices that is diminished and compared to Dragon Age Origins, I can't really think of anything. You could say probably the Mage Templar conflict. Like if you choose the mages, for example, it doesn't really feel like it reacts to your choice that well. While in comparison to Dragon Age Origins, it reacts a bit better. I guess you can say that. But even then, in Dragon Age Origins, you siding between like the like Balaam or Harrowmont doesn't really change that much. Only until the epilogue slide do you really see what the outcome of your choice was. But before that, you don't really get any indication other than just like Balaam's gonna be better on making the dwarves actually relevant to Thedas, and Harrowmont's gonna kill them off. Not literally, but politically and socially, right? Like again, I don't see how they've diminished RPG choices. It's just more specific, It's tailored to characters, not to a non-character blank slate protagonist.
Games that the player base appreciated so much. The last halfway decent game, although deeply flawed, was Dragon Age Inquisition, released in the year 2014. And even then, it seemed to lack much of what most of us fondly remember about Dragon Age Origins. The causes of this would require a video of its own, and exceed the scope of this video. Suffice to say that many lay blame.
Yeah, he doesn't say specifically what the issues were and that were missing from Dragon Age Origins, because the only thing I could think of as a mission was the Origins, obviously, and that's really it. I can't really think of anything else. If you're gonna say like voice protagonist, then like I guess but like I don't know, dude. Like the Grey Warden could have had a voice protagonist, and that would have fit fine with them. They were a defined character that had that existed prior to your involvement, unlike other RPG protagonists like the Courier from Fallout New Vegas.
Blame at the feet of the greedy corpos at Electronic Arts, or EA, the publisher that bought Bioware in the year 2008, suffocating.
That's kind of how it works, But also, that kind of, again, is missing the point of Bioware is trying to do something different, You can say you don't like it, you don't like the new direction, but you can't say that Bioware has, like, failed to do a Dragon Age Origins again. They haven't failed to do Dragon Age Origins again. They just didn't try to do Dragon Age Origins. They were doing something different. Again, I personally believe Bioware could do another Dragon Age Origins. Same scope, same size, everything. They could do it. The only reason they're not doing it is because they just don't want to. They're not, and additionally EA being a bit odd about it, but they just don't want to. That's simply it.
The vice-like grip of their EA overlords, it is speculated, and subjected to insane crunch time expectations antithetical to the RPG genre, whatever the ultimate truth behind the claims of EA's influence on Bioware after the acquisition.
I think it is very clear to see the ultimate truth of Bioware. I don't think you have to sort of do this weird, like, if it's either Bioware's just the dumbest shit brick ever, or EA something, I don't know. Whatever the ultimate truth is, it's very clear to see that EA is a much more bigger factor than Bioware being bad. Bioware, I don't think, have failed. It's just that I think they're trying to do different things.
Bioware slowly began to wither, and eventually they came to be, as we know them today, a shattered, wizened husk of their former selves, still bearing the name of their forebears, yet wholly lacking in anything of the qualities that made Bioware the renowned name.
Again, Bioware is just trying to do something different. They're not trying to do what they were trying to do before. They aren't failing to do that. They're just not doing that. And I don't think that's a fair thing to say, Now, you can still say Andromeda and Anthem have issues. I think they have issues. From bugs to some inconsistencies in gameplay and some of the narrative stuff. There are some of the issues with that, but that isn't Bioware being incompetent or bad. That's because of the fucking crunch they went through in those games. Like Mass Effect, I believe Mass Effect Andromeda, I think, had developers, once they found out they can take like therapy leave, if they're struggling with some mental stuff. I think nearly half of the studio just fucking left Montreal, right, to just go home for a bit. And Anthem, if you go to a guy called Mark Dara, right, he covers. He's a Bioware executive. He was the former executive producer on Dragon Age Origins, 2, Inquisition, and Anthem, and he says that with Anthem, right, they just wanted to finish the game. They didn't fucking care anymore because they were too tired and lacked too much and were gone for too long, or had gone too long without a clear direction in mind, you know. And so they wanted to finish the game immediately. They didn't care. They just wanted to finish everything. And like, yeah, dude, that kind of influences your product. And you can say that still doesn't excuse bad products. No one's fucking saying that. No one's saying, well, due to these factors, it makes it good. No one's saying that. All I'm saying is that you shouldn't frame it as Bioware is now incompetent. It's just that Bioware is now suffering under the thumb of corporations, crunch, stress, and all of that, and that's what it's gone into. You know, you can't expect someone to make the Mona Lisa in like a volcano, right? There are other factors involved in that situation.
Once was, and to be perfectly honest, the ultimate cause of this might not matter. After all, what does it matter if a man has died of cardiac arrest or cancer? As regardless, he shall forever remain dead. Perhaps one can think of an analogy to Bioware's current incarnation as that of a deceased bear, expertly stuffed by a taxidermist, appropriate for display at a natural history museum perhaps, but lacking in any of the attributes we commonly ascribe to bears. It looks like a bear.
My guy, this poetic language, like, it's nice and whatnot, but it's kind of weird to apply to this situation when it's just not fucking true. Like, Bioware can still make good games. They're just under a bunch of external factors that influence them, and additionally, they're not trying to make the games you want, okay? And that sucks, sure, but this poetic language isn't accurate, nor is it needed, you know? A better description of what happened to Bioware is that throughout the ages, game development has been taken over by people who don't know anything about games and haven't played games at all. It is now being which was once a market that had no clear formula for a successful game financially, not critically or audience wise, has now been forced into that direction. A lot of the things that happened to Bioware is just EA messing up, right? EA, once they saw the success of live service, forced nearly every studio to go into live service because that's what they knew would be successful, right? But it failed. It blew up in their faces with Anthem. And now that they've realized that, they're now going to, again, let Bioware do what they want. They've made Dragon Age Dreadwolf single player. They've removed all the online components. It's no longer an online game. It is an offline game. The only content that you could expect from Dragon Age Dreadwolf is like DLC or expansions. And that's it. Again, Bioware is not a withered husk dying because they are incompetent or whatever. You could say a withered husk dying, even though I still take issue with that sort of description, is that because of EA, they're like that, and some of the issues that the game industry has had for a long time, such as crunch and how do you say, complacency urgency.
But it is dead, and does not stir, bereft of life and vital essence. Bioware of the current age is much the same, the victim of multiple taxidermists eviscerating it and stuffing it to at least appear like it is what it pretends to be, a state of neither life nor death, not unlike undeath. And if the rumor should be proven true about Dragon Age Dreadwolf, this will only serve to further cement this state and reputation.
And by rumors being true, it's just that, Dragon Age Dreadwolf's gone into the direction of more similar to the action RPG of Dragon Age Inquisition. And one, who fucking gave a shit about Dragon Age Origins tactics, okay? Clearly, from what Bioware's data shows, is that Dragon Age fans never really use the tactics other than just scouting, right? And that's it. And does that suck? Sure, it does suck. It does lose some sort of identity to itself and that sort of like charm of it. I can get that. But at the same time, like, it's not surprising that people don't really care about Dragon Age's gameplay. Because again, who plays Dragon Age for the fucking gameplay, dude? Like, people who say that are Dragon Age Origins fans. And that's fine if you like the gameplay. But the primary motive and what Dragon Age has been always about is their characters, their world, their lore, and cinematics. That's what they've always been about. They haven't been about gameplay. And again, it's such a weird misunderstanding of what it is. And again, if you're talking about story, we don't fucking know what's the story of Dreadwolf. All we know is that Soulless Egghead Boy, this guy over here at the bottom of the companions, is like gonna be the main villain, right? Like, oh, okay, cool, he's the main villain. That's all. We don't know who the protagonist is going to be. We don't know who the companions are. We don't know what this story is going to be about killing Solus, or if it's going to have a heel turn and, oh, now this is the new threat. We don't know that. Like, again, this is such a weird, like, drama-mongering type of statement that doesn't really make sense to make.
When thinking of Bioware these days, I'm reminded of the words they themselves wrote many winters ago for their antagonist John Arenicus when confronted by his former queen. He says to her, "I do not remember your love, Elysim. I've tried to recreate it, to spark it anew in my memory, but it is gone, a hollow, dead thing. For years I clung to the memory of it, then the memory of the memory, and then nothing. I look upon you."
My man, if you think it kind of sucks that Bioware isn't making games that you like anymore, I mean, sure, man, but like, I don't think you have to go into this weird depressive spiral of like quoting a villain. It's like, I don't know, my guy. Was it villain? I'm not sure. I haven't played Baldur's Gate. Okay.
And feel nothing.
It's bad.
I remember nothing but you turning your back on me, along with all the others. And so it is with Bioware, hollow, dead thing, that leaves us with naught but ashes in our mouths. But now onto more cheerful topics, namely the ascension of Larian. In many ways, Larian...
And this is the thing that I really dislike about this, okay? If you want to talk about how Bioware isn't doing something that you like anymore, that's whatever, right? But don't fucking make this like a dunking contest, okay? Don't now use Larian as like a bludgeoning tool to say, I hate this company. Bam! Like, don't do that, my guy. Like, why does this always have to be with RPGs that get very popular with these types of people, okay? That whenever these types of RPGs like Baldur's Gate 3 gets popular, they always have to then refer it to then, well, this is better than Bioware, or this is better than Bethesda, or this is better than Ubi shit, or something like that. It's like, my guys, you do realize you can just say you like the game. You don't have to then make a dunking contest of like, oh, I hate X game, and I like X game, and therefore I hate X developer for not doing X game. It's like, my guy, you can just say you like it, okay? I don't get this. And if you want to say that Baldur's Gate 3 is similar to a lot of these things that Bioware does, you don't need to put the fucking Bioware hate in there, It seems unnecessary.
Larian not only embodies the principles of Golden Age Bioware, but does so much more, with some of it due to the intangible qualities of Sven Vinke and his team, and some of it due to new modern innovations in technology that are born of the era we live in, a joining of skill, passion, and kismet, as it were. And I'm going to claim, in much the way a game is sometimes referred to as a spiritual successor to a prior game, that Larian as a developer is a spiritual successor to Bioware, that they are far more than just that. One of the
kind of, I guess. Baldur's Gate 3 is the game that's most similar to what Bioware has done. But I wouldn't say it's the spiritual successor studio. That, I think, would be going to Spider's studio. They're far more similar to Bioware than Larian is similar to Bioware. Because Larian has, one game that's, similar to Dragon Age Origins, while, Larian has, their entire catalog is basically Bioware games. I think that's a bit different.
RPG aspects that Bioware revolutionized was the concept of choice and impact of choice, meaning decisions you make actually have consequences. And the Bioware game I see with the most parallels with respect to Baldur's Gate 3 is unquestionably Dragon Age Origins. Right off the bat, when you consider that Dragon Age Origins was the defining game of its generation in terms of the character you chose to play and story, this becomes very clear. Although the choices for your player character were far fewer, they were all meaningful, meaning that whether you chose to play a commoner or noble dwarf, noble human, Dalish elf or alienage elf or mage, these choices all had a major impact on the game as you went about your quest as a Grey.
Not really. Wait, let me just...
Warden. Being a dwarf, for example, whether noble or common, returning to Orzammar, you can see that your origin matters, and that there is unresolved business to be taken care of.
No? What? What is this misrepresentation of Dragon Age Origins? That doesn't happen. Like, when you play the Dwarf Commoner and Dwarf Noble and then return to Orzammar, you get some dialogue of like, wow, like, with the Dwarf Commoner, you're like, wow, you must be the guy who, like, cheated at the proving, you know? Man, that fucking sucked. Then you just carry on, okay? And then for the Dwarven Noble, it's like, wow, your brother Balim's there, you know? He's a bit of a dipshit, you know? Or if you talk to your brother Balim, it's like, hey, man, I hope, you know, we can let bygones be bygones, my guy. Like, what is this misrepresentation? You get some, like, reference, like, what Bioware does is reactivity. That's different from, like, making it have an impact, you know? Like, characters will react to your character, but that's not the same as having an impact or having unresolved issues, you know? That's different, dude. Like you playing the Dwarven Commoner and Noble does not create new quests for you in Orzammar. It doesn't. If you play as the Human Noble, you will have the same amount of quests and the same amount of choices and the same amount of impact as a Dwarven Noble or Commoner. The only difference is that you won't get those extra dialogues if you were a Dwarven Noble or a Dwarven Commoner. That's the difference. I don't know what's with this misrepresentation of it, but Dragon Age Origins never did that, you know? Like, you're trying to imply that, like, playing as a Dwarven, playing as a specific character will suddenly change quests or something like that, which is never the fucking case, you know?
Same applies to all the other Origin stories. Now, Baldur's Gate 3 is a different game, and Origins play a different role. But the reactivity that I've addressed in a previous video is very much a mirror and echo of those features in Dragon Age Origins.
Yeah, reactivity is a lot more accurate to say, but not impact.
If you choose to play a particular race, people will notice, in addition to whatever basic racials they're making.
Yeah, that happens in, like, that happens in Dragon Age Inquisition as well. Like, what? If you play as a female mage Khnari, the fucking Chantry have some fucking questions for you, you know? Like, no, I mean, it's specifically it's a male mage Khnari that the Chantry has a fucking issue with you, okay? And yeah, I mean, what are you talking about? Dragon Age Inquisition has this. You can argue maybe not to the extent that Origins has it, but like there were not a lot of places for Inquisition to have the characters react to your race. Could they have made more? Sure, that's certainly a good argument to make, but it does have it.
And beyond this, if you choose to play an Origin character such as Karlach, you have a whole world laid out before you, brimming with unique interactions. Then there's the matter of the multitude of decisions you make. One of the more distinct parallels that exists between Dragon Age Origins and Baldur's Gate 3 is, for example, the decision you can make seeking after Dalish support in order to fight the Blight as a Grey Warden, to either side with the Dalish, and specifically their leader, Zathrian, or turn on the Dalish by supporting the werewolves and Witherfang, which is a long, convoluted story in itself. Although hardly a perfect one-to-one parallel, it does remind you of the possibility of siding with either the Goblins in Minthara or Halsin and the Druids, thereby if you choose to play an Origin character, is, for example, the decision you can make seeking after Dalish support in order to fight the Blight with unique interactions. Then there's the matter of the multitude of decisions you make. One of the more distinct parallels that exists between Dragon Age Origins and Baldur's Gate 3 is, for example, the decision...
Okay, so decisions that you can make. You do realize you can make decisions in Dragon Age Inquisition, Mass Effect, and Andromeda as well. Anthem's different, okay? But you could still do that. In Andromeda, you get to decide... it's not as big, huge choices like Dragon Age Origins, because it's a different game. But you can still make decisions that are meaningful within the context of what the game is trying to do. And again, if your issue is that Bioware doesn't do these big, huge choices, sure. But again, they weren't trying to do that. What are you saying? And as let me finish.
Successor choices have an impact, and in Baldur's Gate 3,
impact the fuck. Okay, like siding with the elves or the werewolves does not have a fucking impact. The only impact you get is you can see them at the end of the game, okay? And that's it, right? You don't see the consequences of letting fucking feral werewolves roam across Ferelden. Like, that's kind of bad. You know, you 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 don't see people like, holy shit, Warden, you made such a terrible choice, okay? The werewolves are literally murdering people, okay? Because they're too bloodthirsty. You dipshit. And obviously, the werewolves aren't bloodthirsty inherently, but in the epilogue slide for Dragon Age Origins, you see that they do descend upon Ferelden and start now killing people. Okay, my guy, you don't see the impact of your choice if you choose the werewolves at all. Neither do you see the choice if you choose Balaam or Haramond, if you keep the mages alive or kill the Templars, um, if you save Isolde and Connor, or kill Isolde and or kill Connor. You don't see the impact of those choices. It's flavorful. It gives you a lot to chew on. It's really nice, but it's not. You don't see the impact of that. You don't see the consequence of that. The only time you see that is at the end of the game of an epilogue slide. And again, that's not bad. That's fine. But don't fucking try to make up shit about Dragon Age Origins. It does not, by any means, show you the full extent of those consequences in game. It shows you at the end of the game in a text box. Like, my guy, what are you talking about?
These are two very different choices that are reflective of two very different moral perspectives, which both quest the nature of the beast in Dragon Age Origins, and the decision to side with the Absolute versus siding with the Druids and Tieflings embody. But of all the RPG systems out there, the one system that Bioware probably contributed more to than any other developer out there in the history of gaming until now is the companion system, as well as the notion of approval and disapproval. No other developer has put that much energy into the members of your party until Larian, and it would be virtually impossible to say that Bioware did not influence Larian in this regard.
What are you saying with this? What?
The companion system, as well as the notion of approval and disapproval. No other developer has put that much energy into the members of your party until Larian, and it would be virtually impossible to say that Bioware did not influence Larian in this regard.
What's with this comment? It's virtually impossible to say that Larian didn't. What? Are you trying to imply that like Larian, like somehow did it on their own, or like it sucks that what?
Differentiates this approach to party members from so many other games is the degree of interactivity and reactivity to the player character's decisions in the world, starting with the original Baldur's Gate games, which had party banter and companion quests, as well as reputational gain and loss, and still later being best embodied in Dragon Age Origins, with the combination of
best embodied in Motherfucker, you do realize that like Dragon Age Inquisition has like what, I think 8 hours of fucking banter? What is Origins, 5? With DLCs included? Fuck off. Dude, holy shit, my guy. I hate these people so much. They clearly don't understand that Bioware still has the reactivity and amazing companions, okay? Like, they react, like, okay, in Andromeda, right? After every single main quest and after every single companion quest, you will have characters that react to what happened. They will talk to them. They will talk to them on the Tempest. They will talk to them on the Nomad. They will make a comment on it, right? They will react to those to what's happening around you, and that's fucking amazing, you know. Again, this guy clearly is just trying to use Larian as a bludgeon against Bioware, and you know what? Fine. If you don't like what Bioware's do now, that's okay, right? But don't do this, man. This really sucks. To just see you using Larian, this really nice development studio who's trying their best to making the game they want to make, as fodder to just shoot shots at Bioware, you know. Bioware still do reactivity and companions really well. On the same, does Larian do it better? The game isn't out yet. From what I've played of early access, it does it quite well, but like, there's just a difference from a Bioware companion to like I think a Larian companion, because obviously for Bioware companions, all the people who are there because they want to achieve a similar goal. For Larian companions, I've always felt like it's always, well, dude, I guess we're in the same boat. I guess we are forced to do this, because it feels like every single one of these characters would never actually be with you if they weren't forced into that circumstance. Well, all the characters in Bioware RPGs are there because they want to accomplish the same goal as you, which I think is more meaningful. Obviously, that's a difference in opinion, but I do think that's a meaningful difference, which makes me, I think, like Bioware characters more, because they actually want to be there. They actually want to be on the adventure. You know, instead of where Larian's companions are, it's like, oh gosh darn it, I didn't want to be here at all. It's like, what was it, Laziel, right? If Laziel didn't have, if wasn't infected by the Mind Flayer, right, she would have fucking left. You know, she would have just left. You know, there was no reason she was staying, dude. The only reason she's there is because of the whole mind worm thing. Yeah, but whatever, dude. I guess Larian better than Bioware. That's all.
Of both interesting party banter, approval and disapproval, camp dialogue, and exchange. Some companions like each other.
Yeah, Mass Effect Andromeda and Dragon Age Inquisition does this. What are you talking about?
Others do not. And satisfying one does not necessarily mean satisfying another. An excellent example of this in Dragon Age Origins is the quest to acquire the Urn of Sacred Ashes, which you can choose to defile, and should you choose to do so, some of your companions will actually turn on you for committing this heinous deed, whereas others will in fact approve of this act.
Yeah, but there wasn't any real things that in Dragon Age Inquisition or Dragon Age... Yeah, no, Dragon Age Inquisition does have your companions leave you. In Mass Effect Andromeda, that's a bit different, but, like, that was the same for, like, Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3, okay? You couldn't really, like, after you got Garrus, you couldn't really, like, kick him out again, you know? You weren't allowed to kick Garrus out again. Not again, but to kick Garrus out. So I guess that doesn't apply for, like, Mass Effect Andromeda. Your companions can't leave you, but that was the same for Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3. As for Dragon Age Inquisition, you can ask your companions to leave, or you can be such a dick to them that they'll leave by themselves, or you could just not recruit them. Like, what? And as for quests specifically like the Urn of Sacred Ashes, there is no, like, quest where you can do something so heinous that it would cause the characters to leave, right? Because in Dragon Age Inquisition, there isn't any quests that are like the Urn of Sacred Ashes. Now, you can argue that there should be quests like that make your companions leave, or the companions should care about certain things in the story that should make them leave. And that's fine if you want to argue that. But again, Bioware wasn't trying to do that. They didn't fail, they just didn't do it. That's a meaningful difference.
Morgan and Liliana do not particularly like each other, and choosing a certain companion during the course of the game can lead to the outright loss of another. Although Bioware pioneered this deed, whereas others will in fact approve of this act. Morgan and Liliana do not particularly like each other, and choosing a certain companion during the course of the game can lead to the outright loss of another.
What? The fuck you mean? What? That doesn't happen. None of that fucking happens. What? What? If you fuck Liliana over Morgan, yeah, Morgan will be a bit iffy. And if you're a male warden, will not like it, right? But she's not gonna fucking leave. She can't leave. And if you fuck Morgan, yeah, Liliana's gonna be a bit upset, but she's not gonna leave. What makes a companion leave in Origins is two things: low disapproval, and if you did something so heinous, like with the Urn of Sacred Ashes thing, right? Then they'll leave. But yeah, and that's the only two ways. And only Liliana, Wynn are the only characters who will leave or fight you if you do that. All the other characters, for them to leave, like be forced to leave, you have to get a low disapproval. But you siding with another character does not make them fucking leave. What are you talking about? Like, I'm trying to think, but I don't think there's... You could probably argue with Loghain that if you have a hardened Alistair and you choose Loghain, that Alistair will leave your party. But that's like one fucking example at the end of the game? Like, what? Like, that doesn't make much sense, you know? Oh my gosh, dude. Why do these people do this to themselves? They have to lie to make Origins look better than it is. And it's not Origins is bad, it's just like they're lying so that they can make the other games look bad. Which is like, my guy, you don't have to do that. You could just say you like the other game more than the others because it does something that you like.
Although Bioware pioneered this type of system of interaction, and further refined it, I will argue that it is in Baldur's Gate 3 that the system of approval, disapproval, and deep companion interaction will reach its apogee in modern gaming, and this is already apparent in early access, which barely scratches the surface of what we will experience come the full release of the game.
Seems fine. Like, I can kind of tell how all the companions get approval. Lazaril, you're gonna have to be a bit of a dick, like Morrigan. You know, like, wow, weak ones, we have to kill them because they are weak and pathetic. And additionally, saving people who are warriors, that's gonna get her. Agreeing with her is also gonna make her likable. Shadowheart is just like, do you have to be a decent person, and then that's fine. As I cannot say his name, the vampire guy. You have to, like, I don't know, kind of be a bit of a douchebag, but also be flamboyant about it. Gale is like, you have to magical artifacts and asking questions because he's a narcissist. And yeah, I mean, like, they're fairly easy to understand, like, what they like and dislike. You know, you can balance that fine enough. As for, like, deep companion interaction, I can see that, but, like, it's not like Dragon Age Inquisition doesn't have that, you know? They have deep companion interaction. Again, they have like 8 fucking hours of banter, dude. Like, that's a lot of banter. And yeah, my guy. And that doesn't include DLCs. With DLCs, it's a lot more. But sure, you know, Bioware bad, I guess.
It is, for example, quite clear that Shadowheart and Lizelle bear little love for each other, and that gaining the approval of both, whilst they are in your party, will be no simple matter. Beyond this, we know there are
seems simple enough. Like there are ways you can min-max it. There may not be gifts like in Origins where you can just, you know, get the DLC for the gifts and just get approval, 100% approval with 2 boxes. But I can tell there are very easy ways to get both of their approval up, especially since I don't think this is true. I'm not sure if this is going to be true for the full game, but because I haven't experienced it. Because like when I was getting approval for them, if one of them wasn't in my party, and in the situation where they would disapprove, they wouldn't disapprove, and it would be only approved. So you can mid-max it in that way. So you know, it'll be a simple matter. Why do these people make these games out to be more than they are, dude? Like, I don't know.
Inherent conflicts of interest baked into the game on multiple levels, say with Gale's incessant need to devour powerful magical items at your expense, or the simple fact that Shadowheart must carry around a Githyanki artifact that Lizelle could gain great renown for if she were to acquire it for herself and bring it to her people. And last but not least, the inherent conflict of interest between Will and Karlach, as we have been informed by Larian, since he has been tasked to hunt her and take her head. It might be the case that Larian was inspired by
and that's the kind of issue I have with a lot of not the Gale wanting to consume magical artifacts, that's fine, but more of like companion conflicts. There are like that, because like to me it always feels like Larian's companions are just douchebags to everyone. Like that's always the vibe I've gotten, you know. It's like, why do I want to be on this epic cool adventure? I don't wanna. It's like, the fuck, my guy, if you don't want to be here, leave then. But no, they can't leave because the characters need to be there for gameplay purposes, narrative purposes, and because players would like them to be there. Why do you make them such sulky sulks, dude? Can you not just like make them want to be part of the adventure? Like, can you not make their goals align with the main quest? Or I just sometimes don't get it, you know. Because again, like, if literally all of them didn't have the mind worm in them, they would have all fucking left, you know? Tav would have just been like a murder hobo roaming around, seeing what's happening, and they would have just left. Asterion would have left, I think that's how you say his name. Shadowheart would have just left. Laziel would have just left. Gale would have left. I can't remember the other guy's name. They would have just left because they have no reason to be a part of each other, right? While with Inquisition and Dragon Age and Mass Effect, it feels more meaningful because they all want to be there because they agree with the thing that your character is trying to do. And I like that a lot more.
Bioware in some of its design decisions, but inspiration can only take you so far, and Larian stands on the precipice of not only inheriting the mantle of King of RPGs from the Bioware of the days of yore, but far surpassing it in every respect. The depth of the RPG systems, whether story, race, class-based, or environmentally.
Again, Bioware is trying to do something different than what Larian's trying to do. Like, my guy, they're not. Again, like you're trying to say that Bioware, the fish, is trying to should be trying to climb up the tree, like Larian, like Larian the monkey, right? They can climb a tree very easily, very easy for them, right? But then you're saying Bioware, the fish, should now be climbing the tree. No, they're different things, dude. They're trying to do different things.
Will truly be something to behold, and will supersede anything we've seen from Bioware or other RPG makers in the past. The specific reasons as to why this is the case, in terms of history, development, and studio independence, would take a separate video to understand, and such
Nice mod for the Dreadwolf there.
a video is warranted. However, for the time being, we can be confident that with Baldur's Gate 3, a new age of RPGs will be ushered in.
Not really. I mean, that's very hard to make Baldur's Gate 3, and also not every fucking RPG wants to be Baldur's Gate 3. Like I don't get why these people don't fucking get it, dude. Like, you do realize then when BioWare had their RPG, like, Golden Age that you're talking about, that not a lot of RPGs were like BioWare. Like, I think Spider Studios was trying to do that, CD Projekt Red was trying to do that, but not else. You could say maybe Darksiders 2, but that had the dialogue wheel. Deus Ex, I guess. A few of them, but like, but after that initial buzz, after that initial trend died down, you know what happened? RPGs went back to like isometric RPGs, and also those RPGs, less of them were being made because they're really fucking expensive, and it was just a trend that people were kind of forced to do. Like with the open world trend, like not a lot of developers want to do it, but they're kind of forced to do it. Like Dragon Age Inquisition, there's behind the scenes stuff. The horses aren't really that good. They're pretty bad. But the reason they have it is because at the time, open world games and fantasy games, it was expected there to be mounts, right? That was sort of like a Google search of like, does X game have Y? You know, and if it doesn't have Y, then that'll affect people's purchase of it. Now, is that dumb to make a horse that's basically useless, but just to satisfy people's like Google search that so they can get an answer that says yes? Yeah, I mean that is fucking dumb, but that's what happened, and that's why it's, I think, pretty bad to expect these sort of trends to keep happening. All that I think people should expect is like, and I hope for more games like Baldur's Gate 3. And I hope for more games like Baldur's Gate 3. I have issues with it, but I hope there are more games like Baldur's Gate 3. I love cinematic RPGs, but I don't expect the whole industry to now conform to my tastes, you know? I mean, I would love that, personally, but I can't expect that to happen, you know? But, you know, yeah. Again, this video is pretty bad, because it doesn't really understand what Bioware is trying to do, what Larian's doing, the game industry, RPGs at whole, and it lies a lot about what Dragon Age and Baldur's Gate are trying to do. Like, again, my guy, like, you don't need to lie to say you like something, okay? You could just say, I like it.
And the fears and concerns expressed by developers attest to this. Whether or not Baldur's
What?
Gate 3 turns out to be a once-in-a-lifetime anomaly, some have spoken of.
My guy, the people who are saying Baldur's Gate 3 is an anomaly, or people shouldn't expect more Baldur's Gate 3, are just simply saying, please don't say to people who are not trying to make Baldur's Gate 3 that they failed at trying to make Baldur's Gate 3, dude. Like, holy shit, dude. I remember this one developer says, in this era of mega games, right, it is cool that they exist, but you will never get a game like Splinter Cell. All these mega games could have stealth combat, but you will never get a game like Splinter Cell. Because Splinter Cell is a game that is so focused on its stealth combat and stealth mechanics that you cannot put that in a mega game, because that is too much to ask and will clash with other design decisions. Like, again, whatever.
Or an industry benchmark for decades to come. I enjoin you all to no longer shed tears for the loss of the long-dead Bioware, and instead rejoice and bask in the warmth of the new king of RPGs, Larian. Long live the king, and long may he reign. Before I go...
A bit cringy, the last bit there, but sure, my guy. Well, no, yeah. And that's the video, you know. Nothing much to say, then it's not particularly good. I think he's gonna just talk about...
I'd like to invite you to my Discord.
Yeah, talking about that. Again, I think it's just very dumb to think that Bioware is like dead, because it's not. Bioware wasn't trying to do Baldur's Gate 1, 2, or Dragon Age Origins. They weren't trying to do that. They were doing different things, and Larian, they're doing something similar to that, similar to Dragon Age Origins, and that's fine, you know. But you don't need to use Larian as a bludgeon or lie in this video to prove that point. Again, like, I don't know, my guy. This is a weird video to make, because all I really think this says about you is that you're really sad that Bioware doesn't make the games you were like anymore. And that sucks, you know? I mean, I would love more Jak and Daxter games. I would have loved Naughty Dog to make more Jak and Daxter games. I would like more Sly Cooper games. I would like all these older games that I've grown up with to still exist and be around. But it's whatever, you know? It's not that much of an issue. I don't feel that bad, you know? It sucks, but I move on, you know? If a game comes up that's similar to that, I'll celebrate the game that comes up like that. But I'm not going to do this weird thing of, this new game that's better than old game, than old developer, makes old developer bad. It's like this weird logic that you have to sort of hate another game to like another game. Or for you to like a game, you have to hate this prior thing. I just like it, you know? I don't want to pick and choose. I want to like games, okay? And I like Bioware, and I like what they've done. I think there's still some issues with like Anthem and Andromeda, but I like them. I like Baldur's Gate 3. I have some issues with them, but I like it. My general opinion is that it is pretty good. But no, yeah. If you enjoyed, please say so, because I'd love to see.